Hi, welcome to this preview video for a brand new game called X-ODUS Rise of the Corruption. This is a preview of a game that is currently on Kickstarter and it's already funded and looking to unlock many more stretch goals, so we can support it and help it if you like what you see. So what is X-ODUS Rise of the Corruption about? This is a science fiction space exploration game which features a lot of modular board elements, functional spaceships which you can modify with different modes and make them very unique and very different, and all this packed in a co-op game which functions really well and has a lot of fresh elements into it. Let's see how the game plays, but before we dive into this, let's see what's the lore behind the game and what's the theme of the game. Humanity has long left the confines of our solar system and colonized the stars. The people of the galaxy now strive to go further and deeper, explore more and more, and see what is behind all this vast majority of space. So, what the people found throughout their discoveries is the secrets of the Precursors, a mysterious alien species who disappeared a millennium ago. They left behind ruins of their once great civilization and their legacy, the hyperspace lanes. The hyperspace lanes are powerful devices which allow interstellar travel, something that was not available so far to humanity. As the Galactic Council is opening an ancient hyperspace lane to the core of the old Precursor Empire, the system falls under attack by mysterious invaders, led by an entity of pure darkness. You are a group of adventurers who manage to flee the massacre by jumping into the unknown. As you travel through the hyperspace lane, your ships are infected by Precursor energy, which gives you something unique. They give you all these grand, super powerful boons, which allows you to have many more abilities than what is conventionally known so far through technology. Essentially, your ships become very strong and have unique powers. 1,000 years ago, the Precursors what managed to do is created a dimensional rift and unleashed a power force to the galaxy, an artificial being only known as the Corruption. Corruption ravaged their empire and left darkness in its path. What the Precursors managed to do before they vanished through history, they launched an all-out assault and managed to temporarily seal the rift away. The energy, which kept the shield so far up and running, is now fading, and corruption is spreading again to every stellar system in the Precursor Empire. You and your friends have to find enough keys, ancient energy sources of nearly limitless power, to reactivate the seal before it collapses entirely and everything is lost. But beware, time is against you and the corruption is still rising, and not to mention that the cultist armies are spreading the remnants of the old Precursor Empire and they're spreading the darkness, so the avatars are after you, so be aware. Keep in mind what everything you see in front of you is parts of a prototype. This is a very well done and very well taken care of prototype, but still it's a prototype, so the final production will be much better component-wise and production-wise. So in X-ODUS, what you do, the goal of your play is, as captains, you try to bring together a common mission to success. What you're trying to do is, you're trying to recover the Precursor keys, those energy sources that are left behind from the Precursor Empire, and are the only thing that can reactivate the fading shield of the main rift. So what you need to do is, you need to reactivate the shield in order to prevent the corruption from spreading throughout the entire galaxy. In order to win, you need to track down all 4 Precursor Signals, solve the cards to gather the 4 Precursor keys, find the main rift, activate the keys to seal it again, and defeat the avatars left in this system if there are any. If all players are defeated before the rift is closed or the corruption marker reaches the rise of the corruption, you lose the game. This is a corruption track, and you can see that we start from the bottom, the X-ODUS begins, and then if this marker reaches all the way up without managing to succeed in the gold games, then we all lose collectively. So let's briefly go through the setup of the game. First, we start with corruption and the avatars. We place the corruption tracker on the first space of the corruption mat above the X-ODUS begins, and then we randomly select 3 avatar tokens and place them face down, numbers hidden on their marked spaces. You can see the avatar numbers at the bottom of these tokens, so we mix them, and without checking their value, we put 1 on each of the designated spaces on the corruption track with a red spot. Then we select the Precursor Signal cards according to the desired difficulty. We're going to come back with more details about the difficulty briefly to show you that you can see we have very difficult lethal, perilous and hazardous difficulty level. So we decide on the difficulty of our game, we mix those cards and we randomly pull out 4 and put them face down on 2 on the left and 2 on the right, as you can see already set up. Then we put the blue crystals, which represent the precursor key markers and we put one on each spot, as you can see in front of you. Then we set the avatar cards, avatar die and avatar movement markers aside, so we all fix this section of the setup accordingly. Then we sort out the enemies. Enemy cards will be used throughout the game during combats and are set up so that the power and threat increases as the game goes on. We shuffle each level of enemy cards separately, we have 4 levels, and then we stack them in ascending order, level 4 being at the bottom and level 1 being on the top. This way we form the enemy's reserve and it's set aside. We draw 4 cards to form the enemy deck with level 1 enemies and place them near the corruption mat. We set the enemy health and shields marker aside. Note that the enemy level has to do with 4 levels as we've seen. This is indicated in the font of in front of the card, I'll show you in a minute, at the bottom of the card. And these levels determine how powerful the cards of the enemies are and how much of a threat they pose. A good rule of thumb for fair fights, in order to know what you're getting into, is to face an enemy of a certain level with a fleet containing as many ships as the level. So these are the enemy cards, as you can see at the bottom, already set, and we have 4 levels. Level 1, level 2, level 3 and level 4, and this is becoming more and more difficult as the level goes up. Then we sort out the explorations, modules and the allies. These elements are everything the players will need during the game, from resources to exploration material, and they mark all the good rewards and also the negative effects of the game. We shuffle the explorations, the allies, the ship modules, the precursor ship modules and the damage cards individually and place them next to each other to form respective decks. Then we set the explorations, scraps, player health, energy, Rift, wormholes and Pacify markers aside. This you can see all of them sorted out in front of you. All the decks are in the middle. We have also the allies on the top, and also we have the energy markers at the bottom left, and also the rest, the scraps on the bottom right. The rest is the white, the exploration tokens, and all the rest that we have already mentioned. Then we have the player ships and the player mats in front of us. The ship mats are used to track the evolution of your spaceship, its equipment and overall stats. The Precursor Mode cards are powerful upgrades and unique to each ship, so each one has a specific deck, which matches the same color as the player personal board. The game comes with 6 of them and they have 6 unique decks, so you can have very different plays depending on which you choose to start with. The following setup is listed for each individual player. You choose one mat and place the corresponding Precursor Mode cards next to it. Then you place the level 1 card on your mat. This is this card which has this backing, so the level 1 goes already in the slot of number 1. And then you place this card under your mat ready to be activated. You set the rest aside and you pick the required number of health markers you can see here. So when you take damage you flip them to this side, and this all can be read here because it says 8 health, so I pick up 8 health. My starting dice are 1 red and 1 yellow. I have them up here, and then I start with 3 actions, and this is specific to me. This is my activation marker. When I have taken my turn I can flip it to show that I'm already done for this round. Last but not least, everyone starts with 1 scrap unit, which is the currency of the game, in order to buy upgrades and modules, and this is the marker that you'll have on the modular board, and then you start moving with it around. Last but not least, you place your XP tracker on the first level and your ship token on the starting system, which we're going to show in a bit. This is the XP marker. It starts on the bottom left at the position number 1. And as you progress and you gain experience, you move up this chart. A word about the player dice. Keep in mind again that this is prototype material, and the ready produced final version of the dice will be much fancy, custom dice, which is going to look much more cool. And in any case, here is the explanation of the symbols on the dice. You have 3 colors, as you can see, which have the different statistics, and the dice are used in combat throughout the game for solving various situations. Each die has 3 different symbols. The one on the left, on the red die at the moment, means a hit. The one at the middle, on the blue die, represents a miss, and the one with the thunder means that you have special abilities used during explorations or to activate some modes. All of these symbols are varied in numbers throughout all the different dice, and there are 3 different dice in the game, each represented by a color. They have different odds of activating the various symbols that we just explained. The last thing we do for setup is we set up the system stack and the main Rift. in order for you to understand the various different stacks, briefly to show you a bit about their status and what they mean. So the blue ones are supposed to be allied systems, the one on the middle. The yellow ones are enemy systems, the one on the left, and the red ones are corrupt systems, the ones on the right. Now we proceed in order to set up the collective single stack of systems. The system stack is the core of the game, contains every system that can be revealed and explored. You start with just one in the center of the table and you reveal more as you go on. You start by setting aside all of the 6 red tiles and the main Riff tile that you see on the right side of the screen. First, you shuffle all the 24 blue and orange tiles, these are the ones here and here, so you shuffle them together and you create a single stack. This is our common stack of blue and orange tiles mixed together, and then what we do is we're going to make 6 individual stacks out of this big pile. Here you can see the 6 stacks already shuffled, 4 on each pile. What we do then is, in the first one, we shuffle the main Riff tile. This is the main Riff tile going into the first of the 6 stacks, obviously shuffled face down. Then we take 5 random tiles and we shuffle them in the respective 5 stacks that we set aside. Now all of these 5 stacks, they're going to go on top of each other, and the whole thing is going to go on the last stack where we shuffled the last main Riff tile. Now this is our completed and ready stack of systems. The last tile, the last red tile, becomes the starting system and goes at the center of the table. So we're all going to start from this tile. So let's see how the gameplay goes in X-ODUS. In X-ODUS, each turn is divided in 3 phases. 3 main phases in each turn. First phase is the action phase. All players use their actions to perform various tasks. Second phase is the corruption phase. The corruption increases its hold on the galaxy and the avatars move on the board. And third phase is the end phase where various effects are resolved. A word about fleets. When 2 or more players are on the same tile, they can form a fleet for no action cost. That will be active until the end of the turn. Players in a fleet must perform the same action on the same target, send a probe to a system, scavenge in the current one, explore, etc. And the fleet always has the same number of actions as the player with the least remaining amount of actions at the time of the formation of the fleet. It can also add new players along the way, as long as they haven't played their turn already, but their number of actions will be limited by that of the fleet. So let's start with the action phase. The first phase of the turn, players decide in which order they're going to play, and they perform a number of actions determined by their mat. When a player has no actions left, he flips his activation marker and ends his turn. A plate or a fleet may spend all of his actions, must spend all of his actions actually, before the next player takes a turn. And now let's have a look on the different selection of actions that each player has to choose from. So the first action we can do is we can send a probe. For 1 action value, you choose an adjacent empty space, you draw the first tile from the system stack and you place it face up at the designated location. Then what you do essentially is you reveal the system. You can orient the tile any way you wish, as long as you connect to the current position with a hyperspace lane. Essentially, hyperspace lane is a connection which contains no border. For example, I revealed this tile and I connected like that, no border, so this is how I created a hyperspace lane. I couldn't position it like that because I would put a barrier from this location to that location. Now, since I'm taking the send the probe action, I'm not moving, I'm just revealing it, I'm recognizing the space actually, and then if it is, depending on what I revealed, I can put on top of it an exploration marker like I did here, or a precursor key marker on the revealed system. Another action I can do is to jump. For 1 action point, I can move my ship token to an adjacent already revealed connected system. So for example, I can take my spaceship and move it here for 1 action by making a simple jump. Another action I can do is the blind jump. For 1 action point, I can perform the same action as I did before when I sent a probe, but then I immediately jump in the revealed system. I have no choice but to go and occupy the system. Last but not least is the Hyperspace Rush, but it costs 2 action points, then I jump 3 times in a row. While rushing, I do not have to make systems along the way. Basically, I don't need to perform detection rolls in enemy sectors. The detection roll still applies in the last system. You can't rush past an avatar. So for example here, for 2 actions, I can go 1, 2, 3, all the way here, and I don't have to make die rolls since I passed through this enemy system, but I have to do for this one, which is the one I'm ending up. Next, let's see some of the system actions. Actually, these are actions that are associated with interaction with the systems, the various systems of the game. So you can have explore, scavenge, pacify, trade, or ship maintenance. Let's have a quick look on each of those and what they do. First of all, we have the explore action. For 1 action point, you remove the exploration marker, the white cube, from the tile you currently occupy, and then you draw an exploration card. So you can explore by removing this exploration token, meaning that this is currently being explored. Then you draw one card from this pile, we have many of those, and then we take a look on the card and do what it says. We're going to come back on the analysis of the cards later on, but just keep in mind that the exploration works the same way. You remove the cube and you explore the sector you're in. Next is the scavenge option. For 1 action, once per turn, you gain 1 scrap, so the green player can gain 1 scrap from the tile you currently occupy, or if a defeated player is in the system, you gather his precursor key markers, like for example, the blue player can gather the precursor key since the previous player has dropped it. Next, what you can do is you can pacify. This is only valid for non-pacified enemy systems, the ones that are marked with the yellow borders. For example, the yellow player is located on a system that is not allied, so it's a non-pacified enemy system. That means that for 1 action, you can draw an enemy card. You can see the back of the enemy card. We have a deck of those. And if you win the combat with what is revealed, besides this enemy card, you see various enemies of different levels. We'll come back to this in a moment. So if you win the combat, you pacify the system. The way to indicate that you pacify the system after you have won a battle, you take one of these tokens and you place it on the system to show that it's pacified, which this lasts for 2 rounds actually, because at the end of this round, this is going to go into red, and at the end of the next round this is going to go away, which means it's going to be hostile system once again. Another thing you can do is you can trade. For 1 action you can buy modules from an ally, or trade scraps, ship modules, precursor ship modules, and precursor key markers with ships in your system. I'm going to come back in the way it's done, but these are the allies. You see you have the trade action, and this is one ally card flipped. When it's revealed it has various ship upgrades and various modules, and you can trade with it and get all these things that we listed before. Keep in mind you only need to spend 1 action no matter how many modules you buy or exchange. Only the active player or fleet has to spend an action, so you can trade with someone who already played. And players in a fleet can pull their scraps together to buy modules from an ally, and then they choose who is to receive it. Next, what you can do is you can do the ship maintenance action. This costs 1 action point, and you can perform any of the following actions once. You pay 1 scrap, for example you expend this scrap token from your pool, and then you can repair your ship or another ship in the system for 1 health, meaning that this damaged health token, keep in mind you have 8 based on your spaceship schematics, then you spend 1 scrap and then you repair this injury and then you're set to go. You can pay 3 scraps to remove a damaged card, not a repair, on your ship or another player's spaceship on the system. You expend the scrap tokens again and then you remove 1 damaged card. You can see this is the back of the damaged cards, and this is 1 active damage card that is causing you problems. You can buy a new energy marker by paying its scrap cost. So you start with 1 energy marker, then you have to pay 2 scrap tokens in order to place 1 second energy marker here. Keep in mind that these are 2-sided. When you spend them, you flip them. I'm gonna come back in the way energy works later on. And last but not least, you can salvage 1 of your ship module, precursor ship modules, depending what you have and what you need, and then you gain its value in scraps -1. For example here you're gonna get 3 minus 2 minus 1, 2 scrap resource tokens. Keep in mind that when in a fleet, each player can choose a different ship maintenance option or the same action, depending on what they want to do between them. Another useful option is a strain. Once per turn you can choose to increase your number of actions by 1 by straining your ship engine. If you do so, you have to perform a damage roll at the end of your action phase, and straining can be done at any point during your turn, not when you have to spend all your actions, so you can gain actions in the middle of your turn. Okay, let's have a quick word about systems. Each hexagonal tile on the board is a revealed star system of the galaxy. They're all connected by hyperspace lanes, which means that their borders are not having any colored borders. So you can see that here, for example, this is a hyperspace lane because no blue or yellow or red border is between those two sections here. The color of the tile indicates the type of system. Remember, we had allied systems with the blue colors, enemy systems with the yellow colors, and corrupt systems with the red colors. Here you can see all of them together. Let's take a quick look on each of those categories. Let's start with the allied systems, the ones with the blue color. The allied systems are safe havens for the players. The cultists have not yet invaded them, and therefore they do not trigger combat. You do not perform a detection roll when entering an allied system. Avatars, however, can follow you and attack you even there. Allied systems can be explored. You can find the different symbols below, and we have examples of all open tiles so we can show you, and we can explain what each of it means. Starting from left to right, on the top row of the hexagonal allied systems, we can have the different symbols. Let me explain what each of those symbols means. You can have two or more symbols of different types, but each of those have the same meaning depending on if they're printed on the tile. For example, this one, which has this precursor icon. A precursor signal can be detected. When you reveal this symbol, place the matching precursor key marker on the tile instead of an exploration marker. When you use an explore action, reveal the corresponding precursor signal card, and then from a normal card that is, and then you leave the marker on the tile. You move it to the ship mat of any player if you successfully acquired the key. I'm gonna come back with the importance of those later on. So basically, I pick up number 2 from this one and I put it here. This is a precursor key. Remember, I need to get 4 of those to seal the gate. Then the second one is a normal exploration token. We have seen it before, the exploration symbol. This means that exploration is possible here. This goes on top of this icon to indicate that this is an exploration available position. So what you do here is you place an exploration marker on this symbol when the tile is revealed. Remember, you need to spend an action to proceed with exploration. Next, the third tile in the sequence indicates, besides the exploration token, on the bottom, a wormhole. A wormhole is open in the system. You can use it to navigate the galaxy very quickly, and systems with wormholes are all considered adjacent to another. Therefore, it's like jump gates where you can go from one side of the board to the other very, very fast. The avatars cannot use wormholes unless they're specified by the corruption die. Next, what we have is the final symbol, which is an ally is around. This is the fourth one here. And this means that an ally is around and available for trade each time you're in this system. Remember, we're going to have an explanation of the allies at the bottom of this screen. For example, here, these are the allies. Let me show you how they look on the back. They have also the exploration token symbol here. And let's focus on this card so I can explain what we can see. These allies. When you enter a system with an ally symbol, you draw the first card from the allied deck and place it face up near the board. Then you draw the required number of ship modules, which is indicated here. This shows 3. And precursor ship modules, which is indicated here. This shows 1. You can now perform a trade action to buy any number of those modules from this ally. When in a fleet, all the players are required to use the trade action and can pull their scraps together to buy modules. They choose who receives it. On top of that, some allies have special skills, which are printed with text here. When you trade, for example, all module costs are reduced by 1, which gives you obviously a benefit. Next, we have the enemy systems, the ones with the orange borders. These systems have fallen prey to the corruption and its cultist legions. They are openly hostile, and they will send spaceships to engage you when you enter and you are detected when you're jumping into them. When you enter a non-pacified enemy system or start your turn in one, you have to perform a detection roll. If you fail, you're detected and you must draw the enemy cards indicated on the tile or engage any cards already revealed in this system specifically. If at any point you have to draw an enemy card and none of them is left, then you shuffle the discard pile obviously back into the main deck to create a new one. You can choose to ignore the detection roll and voluntarily trigger the combat immediately. If you defeat the enemies, the system becomes pacified. Check on the tile, the third tile on the top row, which shows the pacified symbol, the token that we have put and mentioned before. Enemy systems can be explored as long as they are not engaged with an enemy. we have different symbols again on the enemy sectors, and let's explain them starting from the top left corner. Here we have different combinations, obviously, we have spoken about this before, but let's see. This sector means, again, like the previous ones, the allied, that you put an exploration token on it, and that means that an exploration is possible in the system. You place an exploration marker on the symbol when the tile is first revealed. Then, the next one, let me discuss about this one, this symbol, and you have two of those here on this tile. An enemy or fleet of enemies is patrolling the system. If detected, draw one of two cards and fight them consecutively. Then we have the radar symbol here on the first one, which means that the system is under constant surveillance. You're always being detected when you enter the system, and you skip the detection roll entirely. Then we have the normal wormhole icon. We have seen it before. You can jump from these symbols to other sector systems that have this symbol, whether they are allied or enemy systems. And last but not least, the symbol with the plus, which is located here on the top of the last sector. Enemies in the system are stronger. If detected, draw the enemy card from the reserve instead of the deck. Traveling to an enemy system through a wormhole still triggers a detection. Just because we mentioned it before, remember the Pacify? When you pacify a system, you place a Pacify token on the tile, green face up. A pacified system is temporarily free of enemies, and you do not need to perform a detection roll when you enter it. During the end phase, you will discard all red tokens and flip all green tokens to the red side. Essentially, what it means is that the system stays pacified for 2 turns. The detection roll, simply when you have to do a detection roll, you roll both of your die, and then, if you roll at least one red circle symbol, you are being detected and you must draw an enemy card from the deck. If in a fleet, what people have to do is they all roll their die together, and each one of those has to avoid getting this symbol. If at least one spaceship in the fleet brings the detection symbol, then the whole fleet is being detected. The last type of system are the corrupt systems. These are systems that have been completely infested by the corruption and drained all the resources. Corrupt systems can never be explored. Secondary rifts are open in every corrupt system, allowing passage to the avatars. During avatar movement, we're gonna come and see later on how this works, corrupt systems are all considered adjacent to each other. So basically they are like a special wormhole used by the avatars. Okay, let's have a word about explorations. Explorations indicate that some random events and discoveries are happening to you during your time in the system. Some of them can be positive, others very powerful, and some even treacherous. When you explore a system, you remove the exploration marker from the tile and draw the first exploration card from the deck. You start reading the title, the type of exploration, you can have analysis, warning or danger, and then the immersion text. You can see already in front of you we have all types of cards of explorations open. The analysis one is the one located here, then the warning is the one located here, and last but not least you have the danger, the most dangerous ones, which are located here. This is the back of the cards. Let's see each of those briefly what they do. The analysis. These explorations are the safest and represent little to no danger to the players. You can pick any of the 3 options, if this is possible, and you can even spend more actions to pick up additional ones. If an option gives you 2 or more rewards, you apply all of them in whichever order you choose. Keep in mind that fleet members can all pick a different option or share a common one, and then you can obviously buy additional ones as you see fit. Some options are locked unless the fleet member ship belongs to a certain class, indicated by what is needed here. For example, here it shows that it needs a rogue class type. You can have warrior, scholar or rogue. If this is the case, you can access the options and its rewards respectively. Then we have the warning ones, the one with the yellow text, indicating warning on the card on the top left of the card. An example of a warning card is opened on the top right of the screen, and these explorations are timed events when you have to choose quickly, and they offer stronger rewards but also great risks. Warning cards have one option that is stronger than the rest, but requires to pass a skill roll. If you fail the skill roll, then you pick the red effect of the card. If you succeed, you get to the immersion text, and then you get to any asterisk symbols to get your reward. The entire fleet has to pick only one option, obviously, and you can't spend more actions for additional rewards. Now I think it's a good time to mention what a skill roll is. When an action requires you to pass a skill roll, simply you roll both of your dice and then you check the result. If you obtained the number of thunderbolts indicated on the card, then your skill roll is successful. Or you can get the number of these symbols depending on what the card is requesting. In a fleet, all the players roll together and add the results, and then they succeed or fail all together. Last but not least is the danger card. These explorations are hazards that you have only one option. In order to pass the danger card, you need to perform a skill roll. In the various danger cards, if you succeed, nothing happens. You just safely get out of the situation. But if you fail, you have to resolve all the red symbols. Again, the entire fleet needs to succeed or fail all together and shares, obviously, all the consequences. So let's see how a damage roll works. When a situation requires you to perform a damage, you roll your dice, obviously again, and then you check the results. You can have this result if you're straining, if you're disengaging, or if you're being engaged by an avatar. Each of those cases require you to roll a damage roll. You roll both of your dice, and if you roll this symbol, the red circle, you lose 1 health. If you roll 2 symbols, you lose 2 health, and you draw a damage card. Remember, the damage cards, it's something that you obviously don't want because they cause you a lot of pain. In a fleet, each player rolls separately their dice in order to determine their own damage. There are a lot of symbols and effects on these cards, and you can see here an example of those. I'm not going to go through all of those, I'm just briefly passing some of them so you can see there's a lot of replay value and a lot of things happening depending on the symbol. And the rulebook does a great job to indicate what each symbol means. Precursor Signals. Precursor Signals are special explorations that lead you to a precursor key. To reach them, however, you will have to solve a given situation. When you explore a system containing a precursor key marker, you draw its corresponding precursor signal card from the corresponding mat. Remember, here we have 4 precursor cards, so we draw the card and we'll read what it says. Each precursor signal card is different and requires a different problem to be solved. You can only access a precursor key once the condition is met. There are 3 different levels of difficulty when it comes to the challenges that you have to face in order to get the key, and you can adjust the difficulty of the game, and I'm going to show at the end of this video how you do that, which is also a great addition. So you can have blue hazardous. Hazardous cards offer a fair challenge without too much drawback. Then you can have yellow, which are perilous, and perilous ones have much more demanding effects and harsher consequences, and the worst ones, you don't want to mess with these, are the lethal ones, the one with the red border, like this one, like me, where lethal ones are the worst possible cards, often with game-altering effects. Once you solve the precursor signal card, you discard it. You move the precursor key from the tile to your player board, and congratulations, you just found your first precursor key. Remember, you still need 4 of those. Precursor signals are different from normal explorations, since they don't have to be resolved right away, or in one go. The card stays in play until you manage to access the key. Once a precursor signal card is being revealed, you can interact with it whenever you are on the corresponding system. Unless the card indicates differently, accessing the key is not an action. When you're on the main rift, remember, the main rift is a red tile, which has a bigger symbol in the center, and when you're on the main rift, you can explore it. You pay 1 action as usual to activate all the keys in your possession. You need 4 keys. To signify this, you place all the key markers from your inventory on the tile, and when all 4 keys are on the rift, the main rift, the avatars will immediately move. You roll the avatar die as if you were in the corruption phase. They're trying to reach you for one last time and destroy you, obviously. They will focus their movements on reacting and reaching with the main rift tile instead of players, so their focus has been drawn to the main rift tile because they understand you're trying to seal it once and for all. And since you're not in the corruption phase, you don't perform a damage roll. The avatars won't specifically target the players, but they will stop to engage one as per normal engagement rules that we'll see later on. If all 4 precursor keys are on the main rift tile at the end of the action phase and no avatars are in the system, players manage to seal the rift once and for all and immediately win the game. This is a situation, for example, where all players manage to be on the main rift tile. They produce the 4 keys as the game requires. There are no avatars located on the specific system, and therefore they manage to seal the main rift gate and win the game successfully. So let's quickly go through the modules. Modules are special pieces of equipment that can be added to your spaceship, and they grant a wide variety of abilities and skills, as well as powerful boosts. All of those are very important for you to make your successful win and seal the game. So, the ship modules. Ship modules, the ones located here, you can see on the bottom left of the screen, are the lower grade equipment that can be found during explorations or bought from allies, for the price indicated on the card. While they are not the most powerful like the Precursor modes, they can still make a difference, either by reinforcing your ship's strength or offsetting its weaknesses. Then you have the Precursor ship modules. Remember, when you made your jump, you picked up some of those, which give you quite a boost. Precursor ship modules are rare artifacts from the Precursor era that can also be found during explorations or bought from allies, again for the price indicated by the card. They work essentially the same way like other modules, but they are very, very powerful, much more powerful like from the ship modules, and you can have gaming changing abilities that can help you quite a lot and boost you significantly. The type of activation varies. Ship modules and Precursor ship modules come in 3 different types. You can have passive cards, which grant a permanent effect that triggers whenever the condition is met. You can have consumable cards, which are one time off, as you can imagine, and their effects can be exploited and then discarded after use. And then you have energy cards, which require you to spend energy from your spaceship by flipping markers, and then you can activate those cards when you have spent the required energy. You start the game with 1 marker of energy in your reserve, but you can unlock more as the game progresses. Also, you can buy them for its scrap cost. Last but not least, we can have the Precursor modes that you have on top of the mat of this player for this spaceship. The Precursor energy field that alter your ship grants you many powerful assets in the form of self-evolving, highly specialized modules. These are the Precursor modes, and the more you use your ship the way it's designed, the stronger it becomes. Each spaceship is better suited to play a specific role and becomes more powerful by doing so. Each card has a specific deck. You can see the first one flipped and in the first slot. We have also flipped the second one, and we show you the back of the next Precursor mode cards from this specific spaceship. Whenever you reach a new level of experience, basically whenever you perform the action indicated on your ship mat here, when you form a fleet, for this spaceship, this is different for another one. It can be when you defeat an enemy, so it has different role. So whenever you perform this specific action designated for you to evolve your ship more, you gain experience. You move your XP marker on the bottom of your track by 1. And it goes to the next step. Whenever you reach a new level indicated, you unlock the corresponding mode. This is the way your spaceship is becoming stronger. You choose one of its effects and place the card halfway under the mat so that the chosen effect sticks out. You can activate it the next time your condition is triggered. Keep in mind that modes require energy, so 1, 3 and 5 go on top of the mat, and then modes 2, 4 and 6 go at the bottom of the map because they don't require energy. Energy management is key to winning the game, and increasing your energy reserves is always a good idea. Now let's see how combat works in this game, which is a specific part of the game that I really like. Whenever you trigger a combat, you draw an enemy card, or you can use the ones already revealed in the specific system, and you place it near your ship mat. You're now engaging the enemy, and you can't do anything until you're either defeated or you choose to disengage. Combat itself does not require to spend actions. It just happens. Each enemy has a health and shield value, as well as a special ability that triggers under special conditions. For example, this card here shows this is a level 3, and it has 16 markers of energy, so you need to spend, I'm not going to add 16, but you have to add 16 of those markers, and indicates a health as this spaceship is being damaged. Then you move to the combat sequence. The combat is divided in series of player attacks and enemy retaliations. Before each attack you have to choose between offense, defense and disengage maneuvers. During an offense you get to roll both of your die, all of your die actually, because you may get more. And then increasing your damage output by doing so, and you also have the risk of the retaliation. With the defense option, you roll only 1 die, you choose which one you want to roll, limiting your damage output, but you also prevent critical miss. Last but not least, when you disengage, you run away from the combat, because sometimes it's stupid to stay on and keep fighting, and then we're gonna see what that means. So this is a typical flow of a battle combat. First of all, this is optional, you activate all your eligible modules. Then you do the attack roll, you roll both of your die or only one, depending on what you choose. Then this is optional, you activate any additional eligible modules that can be activated at this stage after your attack die roll. Then you trigger enemy abilities. Then you add all of your hits to determine the power of your output for your attack. Then you subtract the enemy shields, which are indicated by this symbol here. And then you subtract all these values. They are not destroyed, they keep being there, and they keep being seals that you need to overcome from your future attack rolls. Then you remove the difference from the enemy health by flipping those markers. And then you add all of your miss to determine the power of the retaliation. The retaliation, you lose health equal to the power of the retaliation. Then hit damage becomes a problem for you, but this is what you need to carefully maneuver and manage, because you need to attack and sometimes you need to avoid the retaliation. And last but not least, you have the activation of the eligible modules, which come at the end of this phase. So what happens when an enemy is defeated? When an enemy's health reaches 0, he is immediately defeated and doesn't retaliate. You remove the health and shield markers, you put the card on the discard pile, and then each player in the fleet gains 1 scrap per enemy level. Some spaceships have modes with when you defeat an enemy, and then you have to don't forget to trigger those even if you won and defeated them. What happens when the player is defeated? When your health reaches 0, you're immediately defeated and your ship is destroyed. You discard your health and energy markers, your modes, modules and damaged cards, but leave your toppled ship token on the tile where you were defeated. If you are carrying a precursor key, the other players can recover it by performing scavenge action in this system. When multiple enemies are in the system, you draw all cards at once to have an overview, to make your strategy, and then you fight them in the order of your choice. You are considered to be engaged by all enemies, and when disengaging you must perform 1 damage roll per enemy that is already there. You apply also the disengage abilities depending on your outcome. What about disengaging? Remember, one of your choices is to disengage from a battle, or you can disengage down the road when you see it's not going well for you. Despite all your powerful precursor modes, sometimes luck runs out and it's wise to disengage. When a situation becomes desperate, you can always disengage from the enemy and you can hide or flee. When you disengage, you perform 1 damage roll per enemy in the system. So again, you roll your die. And once you have disengaged, you're free to jump, blind jump, or perform a hyperspace rush out of the system. The normal action costs apply. You can also disengage and hide in the system, immediately ending your turn. Keep in mind that you can't disengage if you're part of a fleet unless the entire fleet chooses to disengage. Speaking of fleets, how the fleet combat is performed. During a fleet combat, all players roll together their dice at the same time and each player can choose offense or defense, and they maneuver separately. Retaliation damages are individual and can't be shared between players, and if a player is defeated, the rest of the players carry on the fight without him and his scraps and energy modules are all lost. Some precursor modes of the ship modules can affect other ships in the fleet and boost them obviously, and the rules for modes still apply no matter if you are using an effect from your own mode or from an ally. Keep in mind that when an enemy is defeated by a fleet, each player gains the scrap reward. There are some special rules about modes and modules. Ship modules, precursor ship modules and precursor modes are various effects throughout the combat and exploration and often follow a certain set of rules. Each module can only be used once per attack or action. You can use as many modules as you want, as long as their energy cost and trigger conditions are met. You may choose not to activate some beneficial effects, such as ignore for example red circle, but you cannot ignore negative ones. When several modules can apply at the same time, you choose the activation order. Keep in mind that some modes allow you to reroll 1 or several dice. Each die can only be rerolled once, no matter how many modes are used. Other modes allow you to ignore some red circle results on your die, meaning that it won't trigger retaliation, damages and enemy abilities. In both cases, you can't reroll or ignore a die if you used it to trigger another mode or module during this attack. Last but not least, when you have the thunder symbol on a die, these act as dice modifiers. High-level modes use them to modify your die, adding success. Once unlocked, activate it whenever you want after an attack roll to simply replace the thunder symbol by its modifiers. The activation condition, every mode Modules have an activation condition in the white box, and that must be met before you can use the effect of the card, both in and out of the combat. Activating a module usually doesn't cost an action. The last thing that can happen is the damage. When all of your die show the red circle symbol during combat or after a damage roll, it is a critical miss and you need to draw a damage card. The effect of the card will apply right away and remain active until the end of the game, or until removed with a ship maintenance action, and you need to do obviously if you're in big trouble. Let's see how avatar combat works. The avatars are the corruption's most powerful soldiers. They hunt you down with no mercy throughout the galaxy. They have more health and more shields than any other enemy, and their most powerful abilities are being used against you. Combat with an avatar follows the same main rules like with a normal enemy, but with 3 key differences. Aggressive engagement. If the avatar engages you during the corruption phase, he attacks right away with overwhelming firepower. You immediately perform a damage roll like normal, rolling 2 die and performing the same sequence. The fight itself won't take place until the next action phase and doesn't have to be resolved first. Other players can come and help you to form a fleet. Dimensional escape. When an avatar is defeated, he is not being destroyed. Instead, his token is placed back on the corruption mat 2 turns from the current one. It will enter play again when the marker, the red marker, reaches the black marker again. You also don't gain any scraps for fighting avatars. Keep in mind that if you place the avatar token beyond the rise of the corruption line, it won't come back into the play this game, which can be a great way to take out an avatar before the final confrontation. And then you have the Harbinger of the corruption. If you disengage from a number of avatars, the corruption marker immediately progresses by 1 on the timeline. The effects trigger right after disengaging, effectively interrupting the player's action phase, and it can make a new avatar and new enemies come into play. There are some special rules for disengaging. When several players are in a system, disengage from 1 or several avatars, the corruption marker progresses only once. However, if 2 separate players disengage from 2 separate avatars, the corruption progresses twice. An easy way to remember is to consider that every time you give a ground to the avatars, the corruption becomes stronger. So you need to be careful when you disengage. On top of the high strength and firepower, avatars also possess the most destructive abilities out of all the enemies. Some of them can force you to permanently discard modules, energy and health markers. With health markers you can discard one that it's already lost, red face up, for example, but then your pool is limited. With energy you can start from the rightmost part of the mat, meaning the last marker you unlocked, and with modules you choose whichever you want to discard from any of your Precursor modes, ships and Precursor ship modules. These are different abilities that can make a difference. For example, this one says that when you roll a red circle you lose 1 additional health. Quite bad actually. The second phase in a game's turn is the corruption phase. When all players have spent their action phase is over and corruption phase begins. When the corruption phase starts, you advance the corruption marker immediately on the timeline by 1, simply moving the red marker up on the track. When you reach a new step, you place the avatar pawn face up, number visible, on the corrupt system closest to a player. Then you reveal the corresponding avatar card. You shuffle the next 4 enemy cards from the reserve into the enemy deck, and then you do not shuffle the discard pile though. Keep in mind that if the corruption marker is on the rise of the corruption and progresses, you immediately lose the game. Then the avatars move. Once you have advanced the corruption, the avatars move. For each avatar on the board, in numerical order, not already engaged to a player or a fleet, you roll the avatar die to determine how many systems it will move this turn. If you roll a wormhole, like here, that we show on the black tie on the bottom left of the screen, then you can pass through wormholes this turn, on top of your normal moves, and the wormhole rules apply. There are some special avatar movement rules. For example, an avatar always targets the closest player or fleet that is not already engaged with another avatar and moved towards him. Using the shortest path, the avatars can use hyperspace lanes, rifts and even wormholes if the die allows. When an avatar reaches a system occupied by a player or a fleet, it stops its movement right away and engages them. And when an avatar engages players during this corruption phase, they have to immediately perform a damage roll. If the avatar is positioned equal distance from the players or fleets, he picks the weakest one, following some priorities. For example, first he goes for the single player with the least amount of remaining health, then the single player with the least amount of total health, then the fleet with the least number of players, then the fleet with the least amount of remaining health, and finally the fleet with the least amount of total health. In case of a pure tie, we use the corrupt rule. Basically, when in doubt regarding an avatar choice, we always pick the most damaging one to the players. Keep in mind that not only won't avatars target players or fleets already engaged with another avatar, they also do not use movement to enter a system occupied by other engaged avatars. If all the players or fleets are engaged and an avatar has to yet play, it will move towards the closest player or fleet following the normal rules and engage him if possible. If therefore it is possible for a player or fleet to be engaged by more than one avatar during the corruption phase, in that case the multiple enemies rule applies that we've seen before. As a result of forming fleets, it's generally safer since you can take higher level enemies and hazards, but also it means that several avatars might hunt you down at once. The third phase in each turn is the end phase. After the avatars have all moved, you need to clean up the board before beginning your next turn. What you do first is you discard all the red pacified markers and flip them green once back on the red side. So this one will go, and this one is going to be flipped on the red side, meaning that it can stay pacified for one more turn. Then you disband fleets. Players are free to form them again during their next turn. Here we have a fleet, so this fleet is going to be disbanded. Players can always choose to become a fleet later on again. Then players recover all their available energy, so their energy markers are flipped to indicate that they have their energy back, like so. You shuffle all enemy cards left on the board back into the enemy deck unless a player is still in the system, and then you flip the activation markers back to indicate that you're ready to take a turn for the next round. Just to mention here that there are various variants for 3 players or 2 players. You can also have solo, which is great, and you follow some simple setup rules to do so. And the important thing with this game is that you can also adjust the difficulty. You can have casual wanderers, hardened travelers, and heroic adventurers. In each case you do something simple and then you modify the difficulty. For example, the casual wanderers, this is recommended if it's your first time that you play the game. Basically, you use only the hazardous blue and 2 perilous yellow precursor signal cards. You shuffle them and place 4 of them random in the corruption mat. They already pose quite a challenge and they are a good way to get used to the game. If you choose a medium difficulty, the hardened travelers, once you are familiar with the game, this is what you have to do. You bump up the difficulty, and what you do is basically you shuffle 2 cards of each color and pick 4. The game will pose quite a challenge and harder conditions will be met. And the last but not least is the heroic adventurers. If you're looking for a true challenge, this is recommended as it's quite difficult. What you do is you use all the lethal red and a couple of perilous yellow cards when you're drawing the precursor signal cards. If you're really looking for something difficult, I doubt that you would, but you can, on top of that, place a permanent +1 avatar movement marker to the corruption mat. This is a true nightmare and I'm sure it's very challenging for everyone. So let me quickly give you my opinion on the game. I had a few chances of playing the game for a few sessions and I really liked it. This is a very fresh and different sci-fi co-op game which has very high amounts of tension and difficulty even in the lowest difficulty levels. This is quite a challenge. People need to really cooperate to make the best use of their equipment and their spaceship. Essential to their win is that you play the way it's meant to be played, the specific spaceship that you choose, meaning each one has some boosts and some disadvantages. You need to identify them and really move towards gaining the upper hand on those. What is essential is the precursors and the avatars are really important things in this new design. I really liked the movement of the avatars, how they chase you. Actually, it reminded me of one of my favorite TV series, Battlestar Galactica. For some reason it gave me this feeling. It's really tense, it's really trying to get you down and track you. You want to get out of their way, but you need to find the 4 precursor keys to activate the fading energy of the shield and close it once and for all so that you can win. This is a true challenge. It has a lot of things, not many difficult rules. You easily get into them after a couple of plays, but there are so many options, so much replayability. Really liked it, all of it together as a package. So to finalize, great design, something very fresh, very unique. A lot of love went into the design, even the production of this prototype. I really like what these guys are doing. Hopefully the final production, which is already being funded on the Kickstarter, will unlock many new stretch goals to make this great game even better looking because the design is awesome. So I highly recommend that you have a quick look on their Kickstarter right away, and if you like what you see, to fund them and support them in order to make this a reality and unlock as many stretch goals as possible. This is X-ODUS Rise of the Corruption.